Hi. Hola.
Hi, hier ist Mr. Döse.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new AG Pro variation of the Nike Mercurial Superfly 5 in the Spark Brilliance pack colorway. Now included with the shoes is a string bag that you guys see right here. It's Volt yellow and black in color. They also include this little tag that lets you know that this is a sole plate and stud pattern that is specifically designed for use on artificial grass. So if you want to pause and read what that says, it's pretty basic information. You can do that. And then of course, you get the shoes themselves. So the upper of the shoe is just like what you would normally get with a pair of Superfly 5s, whereas the sole plate and stud pattern you can see is all new. Nike has always had an AG sole plate stud pattern variation for pretty much all of their top end models. Before the new generation of Mercurial, they now have an AG Pro stud pattern, which is what this is. All new, different from anything else we've seen from the brand in the past, and like I said, specifically designed for use on artificial grass / turf fields, whatever you want to call it. So in today's video, we're going to be focusing mainly on the sole plate and the stud pattern because it is different from what you'll find on the firm ground or soft ground pro variations. We're also going to go over the general tech specs of the shoe, take a look at the weight, as well as how these things fit and feel on feet. So if you are interested in learning more, please stick around and watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, the AG Pro variation does have a retail price of $310 US, $10 more than the firm ground model. That's just a premium price tag that they put on the AG as well as SG Pro variations. And again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, it'll take you to the review page on my website where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $310 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, let's talk tech specs and performance features, as well as what makes the AG Pro variation of the Superfly 5 different from the firm ground variation. So with the upper, pretty much it's exactly the same as the regular firm ground Superfly 5. They haven't changed a thing. So we're going to start off with actually talking about the sole plate and stud pattern, which is definitely the main difference. So this is geared specifically for use on artificial grass. But as you guys can see, if you've seen AG stud patterns from Nike before, this looks a lot more like a firm ground layout. In fact, the layout itself is actually pretty similar to what you're going to find from the Tiempo and Magista lines that are available right now, but with some tweaks, of course. So starting off with the sole plate, the tech specs will read that this has the new Nike Plate vacuum forming process sole plate that's made from a single layer of material. And unfortunately, those tech specs are wrong. It's often with kind of AG and soft ground pro variations that the sole plate does end up changing in comparison to the firm ground model. And there's a few reasons for that I'm going to explain in just a second. So just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, here is the firm ground variation of the Superfly 5, and it's single piece of material Nike Plate sole plate, which also is anatomically shaped, so it's not completely flat. It has a little bit of kind of curve to the bottom of it. So when you stand in these shoes, you'll immediately notice that it almost feels like the sole plate is kind of grabbing your foot as opposed to it just sitting directly on top, which is what you would normally have with a flat sole plate. So with the AG variation, it's not made from the same material. Instead, it's more of a TPU plastic, kind of like what you would find on something like a Magista Obra or a Nike Tiempo Legend. It's pretty much the same material that we saw on AG stud patterns or AG sole plates from Nike in the past. It's a little bit on the thicker side as well, and there's a reason for that. This is made for use on artificial grass. So with AG fields, you not only have to consider the fact that they are very, very abrasive, which isn't necessarily going to impact the sole plate, but you have to consider that the heat is significantly higher than what you'll find on a natural grass field, especially if you're playing on an outdoor artificial grass field. Indoor, it's not so much an issue, but if you're playing outdoors in the summertime on AG, you know that it can get extremely hot on your feet. So having that extra thickness to the sole plate is not only going to make your experience more comfortable, it's also going to allow the shoe to kind of be more resistant towards that heat and protect the bond between the sole plate and the upper, which is generally what fails when you wear, for example, a firm ground shoe on artificial grass. So that's the reasoning, I think, for the sole plate being different. I just think that the single layer of plastic perhaps wouldn't hold up all that well on artificial grass. It's not thick enough, it would break down too quickly. So they went with something a little bit more standard and of course a little bit thicker for the Superfly 5 AG Pro variation. This also means that this does not have the same anatomic fit to it. So unlike the firm ground Superfly 5, where like I said, when you stand in the shoes, you notice the curvature to the bottom of the sole plate, this is more or less completely flat. There's a little bit of shape to the bottom that kind of gives the impression of it being similar to the firm ground variation, but when you actually stand in these, it feels kind of like a normal sole plate. It doesn't have that same curve, so that is not necessarily a negative thing. It is a feature that I do like on the firm ground variation of the Superfly 5, but I know not everybody is a fan of it, and I think realistically, if you do want a Superfly 5 that is best geared for use on artificial grass, this is still the way to go over the firm ground model, which like I said, it just isn't the best suited for use on artificial grass playing surfaces. As far as the stud pattern is concerned, again, the layout is more along the lines of what we've seen from Nike as far as firm ground stud patterns go, but they have maintained their kind of hollowed out, kind of ring-shaped stud that we have seen from them in the past. So the length of the studs, I would say, are fairly normal as far as what you're gonna find on most firm ground shoes. So it's pretty standard length there, but again, it does have a thicker sole plate, so stud pressure isn't going to be an issue. Even though artificial grass can be a little bit more shallow, I think the reason why they went with something like this is because with their older AG stud patterns, while they work really well, while the traction is very good, I've used all of them and I quite like using them on artificial grass. It still doesn't have the sensation of wearing a firm ground shoe on natural grass, if that makes any sense. You don't get that same bite. This is what's going to provide more of a familiar sensation in terms of grip, as well as the kind of feel on underfoot when you're actually on the ball. So this will feel more normal if you're just used to wearing firm ground shoes on natural grass. So with that said, in order to still make this kind of geared specifically for AG fields, it does have a hollowed out center to the studs, and the tips of the studs are actually kind of a rubberized material. So they are very, very slightly flexible. You can see that when I squeeze it with my finger, it does move a little bit. Obviously under the force of your entire body when you're standing up, there is going to be a lot more kind of flex to the studs themselves. And the reasoning for that is because when you are on artificial grass, you have to have some kind of break in the grip. The problem with wearing most firm ground shoes on artificial grass is when you plant your foot, it can be stuck. So if you were to take a bump or perhaps even just push off the wrong way, there's a very, very high risk of injury to your joints, whether it be your ankle, your knee, your hips. Even if you do take contact to the leg, your foot is stuck in the ground. I've seen a lot of people break legs because of this. I'm sure everybody in the comments has heard of or perhaps has even seen somebody have an injury on artificial grass fields, maybe not necessarily caused by their studs, but a lot of people wearing the wrong stud patterns on artificial grass do suffer some pretty severe injuries. So like I said, the design of the studs on this particular shoe are for a reason. It's there not only for performance reasons, it's also there for safety. So this, like I said, isn't going to have that same clinginess as a firm ground stud pattern would have. And it's still going to have the feel of a firm ground stud pattern, if that makes any sense. That's kind of why I think they went towards this particular layout. So you have mostly those hollowed out studs. Obviously all four main studs on either side in the forefoot are those hollowed out studs. You have one bladed support stud in the middle, which is kind of more typical of what you'll find on the firm ground variation. And then you do have two more studs at the back of the heel with two more bladed studs there towards the front, where you're less likely to have that cling in the heel area. So that's pretty much it in terms of what's going on with the AG sole plate and stud pattern. Would I recommend using this on firm natural grass? Just because it is kind of a more standard layout. I'm sure the traction would be okay. My only concern would be the actual studs themselves wearing down, because this is a softer rubber material as opposed to a harder plastic. There definitely is potential for these wearing out more quickly than you might like, which again, it's not designed for use on natural grass, it's designed for use on artificial grass. So I guess do that kind of thing at your own risk. But again, don't be surprised if the studs wear out, again, more quickly than you might like. Moving back to the upper, nothing's really changed here in comparison to the firm ground variation. It's a fly knit upper, one-piece construction, mid-cut design with the dynamic fit collar. You do have the fly knit construction with the kind of ribbed 3D design, where basically you have a variation in thickness between 1 millimeter and 2.5 millimeters, kind of in between these stripes on both the lateral and medial side. It just adds texture to the surface of the upper, as well as some thickness to the upper, but it's still very, very thin. And honestly, you don't really notice all that texture on the ball. It does have a Nike skin covering just to protect the fly knit base. You have a little bit of extra Nike skin running along the edge of the forefoot and toe box area, just to strengthen the bond between the sole plate and the upper. You'll also find this on the firm ground variation. I didn't really have any durability issues with the firm ground variation of the Superfly 5, so I don't anticipate people having problems with these either. You do have ACC all conditions control as a feature, acting as your wet control element. Laces run down the middle, of course. As far as structure and flexibility is concerned, the main part of the upper here with all the stripes is where you're going to find the structure. There are fly wire cables that run from the base of the sole into the lacing system, hidden within the actual pattern. That add a lot of structure to the midfoot area. So once your foot is inside, the shoe fits pretty snug as it is, but you pull the laces tight, it locks everything in place, and you get that true kind of one-to-one, super connected, very tight fit on your foot, making for a very, very responsive shoe, given how flexible and natural this feels. In comparison to the Superfly 4, this does have more of a kind of sock-like sensation in that there's more structure in the fly knit as opposed to internal structures, which there's just less of in comparison to the Superfly 4. So laces run down the middle, as you guys can see. It's elasticated where the tongue would normally be positioned. That's still made from fly knit. Same thing goes for the collar. So the mid-cut design, something that people obviously really liked about the Superfly 4. They continue it on here with the Superfly 5, although the fit in the heel is a little bit different, something I'll talk about later in the video. And the collar, it's one of those things that you either love or hate. It doesn't have any performance benefit, unlike what a lot of people believe. It's there, one, mainly to change the look of the shoe, and two, just to give it a slightly different fit and feel in the heel area. There is no actual performance advantage to the mid-cut design. Not really any extra protection, and certainly no ankle support from what's essentially just an extension sock sleeve wrapping your ankle that happens to be attached to the rest of the shoe. Internally, there is a plastic heel counter. You do have a synthetic leather liner on the inside of the heel that does have some decent padding to it, given how thin the actual shoe is. And then the insole, fully removable. This is actually different from the regular variation. It features a mesh liner on top, no perforations, but it does have a dual density insole, which is really, really nice. It's about twice the thickness as the regular insole, and it's made from this kind of more spongy layer of blue foam and then a more dense layer of this yellow foam. So you do have a lot of extra cushioning underfoot, which I think is there for two reasons. One, just because you are on artificial grass, which is a more shallow playing surface, so you want that little bit of extra underfoot cushioning. And two, the extra thickness is going to act as somewhat of a heat shield because, like I said, if you're playing on an outdoor turf / artificial grass field, you definitely know that it can get very, very hot. So the extra thickness of the sole plate, as well as the extra thickness to the insole, definitely should help with dealing with that heat and keeping you a little bit more comfortable while you are playing. So that's pretty much it as far as tech specs and performance features with the AG Pro variation of the Superfly 5. If you have any other questions about this, I can answer them down below in the comment section, but that's pretty much all there is to talk about. When it comes to weight, I thought we'd compare the firm ground variation of the Superfly 5 to the AG Pro model to see if there's any significant weight difference between the two. So I'm going to weigh both of these shoes for you today in real time using this scale. Keep in mind these are both the exact same size 9 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the firm ground variation of the Superfly 5, throw them on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at a very lightweight 6.6 ounces, the equivalent of 188 grams. So we'll change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the AG Pro model, which immediately when you pick them up, you'll notice that they do weigh a little bit more, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.8 ounces, the equivalent of 221 grams. So you're talking about a weight difference of about 1.2 ounces between these two shoes, with the firm ground model weighing less. The reason for the weight difference is the difference in the material of the Soleplate, the Soleplate itself being thicker in general, as well as the insole being a little bit beefier. But again, it makes this shoe better geared for use on artificial grass. So yes, it does weigh a little bit more. Is the weight difference all that significant? Not necessarily. And again, if you are playing exclusively on artificial grass, this is the better option over the firm ground model. And at 7.8 ounces, it is by no means heavy. It just isn't as light as the firm ground variation. All right, so here is a look at the AG Pro Superfly 5s on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock black laces that come with the shoes. And on my right foot, I have a pair of black with neon yellow dots premium SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. Find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, they are quite similar to the firm ground variation of the Superfly 5 when it comes to general fit. The only difference that you're going to notice is the underfoot sensation, and that it doesn't have that kind of anatomical shape to it. It is more flat overall, so it does feel kind of just normal as opposed to something that you need to get used to, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. As far as the upper is concerned, the Flyknit upper is very soft, it's very flexible, it does have a nice tight fit. So if you don't like tight fitting shoes, the Mercurial line and Superfly in general probably isn't the best option for you, but if you want that super snug one-to-one sensation on your foot, you definitely do get that from this particular shoe. The heel area, given that this is a mid-cut shoe, they have changed it a little bit for the Superfly 5 in comparison to the Obra or the Phantom 2, in that it's cut a little bit different at the heel, so it doesn't necessarily dig in quite as aggressively. So it still takes some getting used to, but I find that it is a lot easier to get used to, if that makes any sense. More comfortable, kind of more quickly, but still definitely an improvement over what we got from the first generation mid-cut shoes from Nike, including the Superfly 4, at least in terms of comfort, I would say. But overall, they're pretty comfortable shoes and require some fairly minimal break-in time, I would say. As far as the fit is concerned, it is a Mercurial, so it does have a tighter fit overall. If you have really wide feet, probably not the best option for you. And as far as stretching is concerned, because of the Flywire cables and just the more structured nature of the Flyknit upper, there's really not a lot of stretch to it. So for the most part, the way they fit out of the box is the way they're going to fit for their entire lifespan. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that is it for my review of the AG Pro Nike Mercurial Superfly 5. If you're interested in more info as well as where to buy them, there is a link to the review page in the description of this video. Go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions at all regarding this shoe, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.